Hello and welcome to the webcast today. My name is Ananda Bose. I'm the managing partner of DigiDrub. We are a global digital agency which focuses on branding and marketing organizations, and we do a lot of work in the augmented reality and the virtual reality space in the metaverse. We are sharply focused in the healthcare vertical, and today we are going to discuss about something which is a topic which is very common to the world population and something which is very important to be addressed. We're going to talk about traumatic brain injury as a topic today, and today we have some very good speakers today. They're compassionate people, very closely knit to this industry, and I will request them to introduce themselves. So first, Melissa, if you could please introduce yourself.
Surely. So thank you. And my name is Melissa Ludwig. I serve as the Vice President for Mind Your Brain Foundation, where we really focus on brain injury recovery. And my previous experience is a career with Macy's department stores, and I currently sit on boards and am the board chair for the National Association for Corporate Directors in Philadelphia. So thank you for having me today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Melissa. Candice, if you could please.
Thank you, Ananda, and thank you so much for the invitation to be on your program. It's really an honor to be here. My name is Candice Gant, and I'm the Executive Director of the Mind Your Brain Foundation. It began 15 years ago when we recognized that there was a gap between acute care and rehabilitation, and our survivors were struggling mightily. So that's how the foundation was introduced and was built. And pleasure to be working with you, Ananda, and we'll get into that more in a little bit.
Wonderful. Thank you, Candice. Max, if you could please.
Sure. Hi, my name is Max Schmidt-Heiser, and I'm a clinical neuropsychologist. I'm also a board member on the Mind Your Brain Foundation, and I'm also proud to be a co-principal investigator on the research we'll be discussing today involving virtual reality, mindfulness, and traumatic brain injury rehabilitation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Max. Jillian.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jillian Murray. I'm a clinical social worker by training, and I'm on the board of the Mind Your Brain Foundation. And I'm also a co-PI, principal investigator with Max. And we're looking at the use of virtual reality in persons with traumatic brain injury.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. Nothing better than having people who are strategists, very closely related to this topic, practitioners, research folks. So I think we are going to have a great webcast today. To start off today's proceedings, I will start off with Melissa. And Melissa, one quick question to you is that where do you see this technology going?
Well, first off, thank you for the question. And most importantly, it really is an honor to be amongst this group. And we are very passionate about the cause. But most importantly, I think what we all have recognized is that technology and its advances have created opportunities for us to explore how to help patients, but more importantly, people with brain injury recover, re-enter into the lives that we want to see them succeed with. And when we looked at virtual reality, when it was introduced to us, we saw such a great opportunity. It opened our eyes to what is possible. And I think that the modules that we've worked on with your group has really shown us the successes of that. We already have great successes and feedback coming from people with brain injury using the virtual reality tools. And we see this as something that we will build upon. So today, you're going to hear a lot about what Max, Jillian, and Candice and yourself have put together. And we see this moving forward with almost creating libraries of available virtual reality opportunities for any phase of where someone is in their recovery process, whether that's mindfulness or whether that's how to go shopping again in a grocery store, the practical applications that we know are really critical to the recovery efforts.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Melissa. And I do agree with you, and we'll hear a lot more about this from your co-speakers. Moving quickly to Candice. Candice, a lot of our viewers would be watching this, might not have heard of Mind Your Brain Foundation. So if you would like to please let us know what is MYBF, the mission, and also touch upon the population of traumatic brain injury in the United States.
I'm happy to tell you more about Mind Your Brain. So the foundation is working with brain injury survivors for over 15 years, and it's developing a safety net for people that were discharged from acute and rehabilitation settings, but they're still struggling mightily to help get their lives back on course. And I know this is a long journey because I'm a traumatic brain injury survivor and suffered because there was a lack of resources. I'm one of the lucky ones, though, that had support and the drive to recover, but there's still, according to the CDC and the Brain Injury Association of America, there's 5.3 million Americans still living with TBI-related disabilities because they're underserved or marginalized, and some even say they're invisible. So they're not able to get the help that they need.
Yes.
So we developed the foundation, and our mission, to answer that question, we're mission driven with innovative thinkers. So our three pillars are providing free resources to brain injury survivors and their caregivers. That's important to note. We provide resources, podcast and printed material, an avenue to amplify their voices. And our most recent initiative is investing in and designing the virtual reality brain retraining modules. So it's a tangible safety net, physical safety net that we're working on. And it's really been so impactful to us that we're working with DigiDrub, that is bringing these dreams to reality, that we can provide in-home, perhaps someday, resources to brain injury survivers.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Candice, if you would like to quickly touch a little bit upon, your board also comprises of some neurosurgeons, so, we know that, and, so if you would like to touch upon that too, that would be lovely.
Sure will. So having a neuropsychologist and a certified brain injury specialist with a master's in social work on our Mind Your Brain board allows us the expertise in finding the right tools to improve the outcomes of survivors of a brain injury using virtual reality. So they are going to tell you a little bit more about our research to find the proof of concept of these modules, which is so important. So we have some brilliant minds on our team that I would like to introduce and ask them to speak a little bit. We have leadership curiosity. I think that's what is really providing the momentum to doing this research. And I would be happy to pass it on to Dr. Max Schmidhauser and let him tell you a little bit more about what we're doing.
Yeah, we would love to hear from Max. I know, the research that's happening in this space and why virtual reality.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak about this exciting research. So essentially, virtual reality, as your audience is probably very well aware, is a computer-generated environment that can be experienced and interacted with as if the environment were real. And the type of virtual reality that we were really investigating was a fully immersive virtual reality. And that's the type of virtual reality where there's a full scope of visual field coverage in this virtual environment, and auditorily as well. It tracks with sounds that you can hear from this virtual environment. And so it has a lot of potential promise when it comes to traumatic brain injury rehabilitation. And so that was certainly the potential promise for this technology was one of the things that really interested us. And just in terms of what's out there in the literature, there's a lot of support for its effectiveness. And so what I can say is that there's a study just a few years ago, back in 2019, that looked at virtual reality as a rehabilitation tool and found, in fact, that it can provide a very effective way of providing rehabilitation, because the experience for the user is one that tends to be positive, intrinsically motivating and enjoyable. So it's not something that feels like a type of repetitive drudgery. There's a type of engagement and stimulating effect. And after I go through some of this background information, my colleague, Dr. Murray, will also talk about some of the preliminary findings that we found that really line up with that. The other element, of course, that we were looking at is in this virtual environment, a couple of different modules that we had collaborated on and designed that were relaxing environments that were desirable to be in: a beach environment with an ocean, a mountain environment with a waterfall, and guided meditation track in both of those modules. And mindfulness, for those viewers who may not be aware, it's often characterized as in the research literature, most commonly characterized as paying attention in a special way, which is on purpose, in the present moment, and without any judgments. And there was actually a recent systematic review that is looking at all this really well done research to date, just in 2021, that found that mindfulness-based interventions were very efficacious in the context of neuropsychological rehabilitation. And some of the things that they found in that review were improvements in cognitive symptoms and psychological symptoms. So, for example, fatigue, that can be very common after traumatic brain injury, as well as just objectively measured cognitive outcomes as well. They found improvements there. So the virtual reality itself as a platform has shown some benefits. The mindfulness activities alone, without the virtual reality, have shown benefits. And so there's this question of, well, what about that intersection of virtual reality and mindfulness in the application of traumatic brain injury? And to date, as far as we know, that particular line of research has not been conducted. However, one thing I think is worth mentioning is that there is research looking at mindfulness modules in virtual reality, just not with the traumatic brain injury population. And there was one recent study that I think is worth mentioning. It was a mixed method study using quantitative and qualitative research, as we did in our study, and Dr. Murray can speak to that, done by Seabrook and colleagues just within the past couple of years. And looking at a virtual environment with a guided meditation in a non-traumatically brain injured population, what they found is that it definitely enhanced the self-reported mindfulness experience. It induced positive emotional states in the users. And what they proposed is that in the findings that they gathered from their research is that the virtual environment, this uniquely tailored virtual environment with the guided mindfulness practice, can help individuals deepen their mindfulness practice by creating a sense of presence within that environment. It can allow the users to attend to auditory and visual features that can anchor their mindfulness practice of their choice, and also reduce the scope of mind wandering that might otherwise happen if that virtual environment wasn't present and they were just in a room. And so it can really help to deepen and anchor the experience. And what this research concluded actually is that virtual reality has a unique capability to combine guided mindfulness practice with these tailored virtual environments to lend itself as a great support to individuals to focus their attention in the present moment. And so I'll turn it over right now to my colleague, Dr. Murray, to speak about, in point of fact, what are some of the things that we were able to uncover in the course of our findings.
Absolutely. Love to hear that from Jillian. And Jillian, if you could please also touch upon, the testing, what's next.
Thank you again for allowing us to talk about this exciting research today. So we worked with 38 participants. We were very thankful to two brain injury rehabilitation providers in our area allowed us access with their participants, with their clients. So thank you, Success Rehab and Bancroft Neuro Rehab. So we, did get IRB approval to proceed with our research. We used mixed methods to look at the experience of participants using the technology, as Dr. Schmidheiser mentioned. So we collected pre and post-test stress levels from participants.
Right.
And after the participant had engaged in one of two virtual reality mindfulness modules, they engaged in a brief qualitative interview about what that experience was like for them. And we specifically asked questions relevant to persons with a traumatic brain injury. So the results we got were pretty exciting and are in alignment with some of the existing literature that Dr. Schmidheiser, just shared. So we found that 2/3 of participants reported at least a 1-point reduction in their stress levels. Some of them reported more than 1 point. We had a couple of participants that really had a quite profound benefit to that intervention. We did have some participants who endorsed a stress level of 0 before engaging in the virtual reality modules. However, when we asked them, tell us about this experience, how did you feel after engaging in this? They endorsed that despite having no stress or stress that they didn't recognize before engaging the module, they felt more relaxed and calm afterwards. So this is where the qualitative findings can be really helpful in better understanding the quantitative findings.
Right.
So it's exciting because really our qualitative findings corroborate what our quantitative findings are and how these modules really provided this relaxing, calming environment. We have a couple of themes that has emerged from the data where the environment really created a wonderfully relaxing and calming experience that resulted in stress reduction. But I think one of the more exciting findings is that the participants shared that because they were immersed in a virtual reality environment, distractions were limited. They were given something to do and was provided the imagery for that. They didn't have to imagine. And some participants shared with us that it's hard for persons with traumatic brain injury to imagine an environment. So if you're doing a guided meditation where they're using visualization, that can be hard for some persons with traumatic brain injury. So they shared providing the visuals was very helpful, and they were better able to focus in that virtual reality environment when compared to an audio-only mindfulness activity. And many of our participants were experienced with mindfulness activities at their rehab programs, and it was frequently done in their day program settings. So this was not a new experience for the majority of them. And so many of them said, can we please have this? Because they found it to be such a profound experience. And then we were also able to gain some information from our participants about considerations for future use and application in the population.
Wonderful. No, I think that's wonderful. Any other areas you feel, anything next that you're thinking of? I know there are 3 areas which I learned from y'all was memory, mindfulness, and motor skills, right? Are these pretty much which defines the brain in terms of, how you can treat somebody with TBI? I think beyond that.
Yeah, the effects of a traumatic brain injury are much more nuanced and broad than just those 3 areas. But certainly, I think we have a unique opportunity, as Dr. Schmidheiser mentioned. a lot of persons after traumatic brain injury have attentional deficits. And memory and attention go hand in hand. How can you remember something if you can't pay attention to it in the first place? So incorporating a virtual reality environment where you are eliminating those distractions, you're providing a more engaging environment, you're gamifying the experience to an extent. Again, from what Dr. Schmidheiser was reviewing about the current literature, this is just, I think, going to be a tool that can really be further developed in the future in a thoughtful way to really help this population.
Wonderful.
And please, Dr. Schmidheiser, feel free to interject.
Sure. No, I agree with everything that Dr. Murray had touched on there. And I would just add that I think that we're incredibly excited based on this preliminary feedback we received in this pilot study, that these results are very encouraging about the promise for the application of this technology in a community of individuals who are recovering from brain injury. And I definitely am looking forward to continuing to explore this with the rest of my Mind Your Brain Foundation colleagues to really, explore all the different areas where this can really be leveraged for the benefit of supporting individuals in the course of their recovery from their brain injuries.
Wonderful. Candice, do you see, once you have more test cases or data, I think TBI is common across the globe, and I think there's an opportunity to maybe in the future to democratize it to many, because since you have built it in the metaverse, it's pretty much like Netflix, you build it, anybody can stream it anywhere in the world with the internet. Do you see that as a possibility, or will MYBF walk that path to collaborate with more believers?
Yes, indeed. Yeah. And I think you've really captured it. And that is our intention, so that we would have this, the population is underserved. And we think this is a great opportunity for us to reach out to brain injury survivors in their home, perhaps. And we would have these modules that are already tested. We have proof of concept that would allow them to have a broader scope, a broader availability of rehabilitation tools for them.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. We wanted to keep this. I know Melissa had to leave, but any closing comments? Jillian, you'll start with you. If something, any closing comments from you, and then Max and Candice.
I mean, I think we're just excited to see, how we can best add some additional resources and how to further develop this technology in a meaningful and thoughtful way for persons with TBI.
Max?
Sure. And thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you today about this exciting research. And I am really looking forward to what the future holds for the promise of this technology.
Wonderful. Candice?
Thank you. And I would agree that this has great implication, great application. We are small, and I use this quote often, we are the small hinges that swing big doors. I think that there's great potential in what we're doing to improve the lives of millions, thousands of brain injury survivors across the world.
Wonderful. So for all our viewers who have tuned in or watching this, if you have any questions, you can be a doctor, maybe sitting in Botswana, in Africa, you want to know something more, or a research scholar who wants to learn something more, feel free to send. You'll be seeing an email, at the bottom, candace@mindyourbrainfoundation.org. That's CANDACE at mindyourbrainfoundation.org. Or if you want to reach out to DigiDrub, if you have any questions of how the technologies are developed, those kind of stuff, feel free to drop in a note at info@digidrub.com. I thank you, Candice, Max, Jillian, for your time, and keep doing the great work.
It's a pleasure working with you. Thank you.